Oh, God.
And we're back.
We are. It's been a crazy, we were going to record yesterday, and then shit hit the fan.
Oh, no.
As it were. As it still is.
Yes. Well, it feels like shit's always hitting the fan with you for some reason.
I know. I don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, let's just unwind and start your story then.
Let's do it. Why don't you let the people know who we are?
Okay. I will in just a moment when I can find my script real quick. Welcome to Forbidden, the podcast where we discuss the disgusting, the dark, and the disgraceful in our unmentionables. Yes, we've slipped into something more comfortable. Hope you are doing the same. Welcome. My name is Amanda Kamada.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
And this is the third in our limited series of corruption. Get ready to explore the chilling overlap of crime and power as we uncover the cases where true crime meets political intrigue. From high-profile scandals and criminal conspiracies to unsolved mysteries with ties to corridors of power, we're investigating the hidden stories shaping our society. I'm excited. I totally forgot your hints, but I know that one of them was, I think, journalists or something like that.
It's funny that that's the one you remember, because the other two hints were sex and men.
Oh, I'm not getting either of those lately, so. But I do watch a lot of TV, so I'm always watching journalists, and I've been watching all of this stuff, which we can talk about later, about the horrible things that are going on out in LA. We send our good thoughts to any listeners that we have in LA right now. I mean, what a shit show that is right now.
It will be for a while. Hopefully by the time this airs, all of the fire and everything. I've been so busy with work over the past 24 hours, I haven't even looked. A lot of our partners are in LA, and I know like trying to schedule calls with them has been really difficult. So I believe it's still going.
Yeah. I think it's kind of one of those things that it's almost like when 9/11 happened. If you were in New York, it's like if you weren't like a part of it, you knew somebody who was affected by it or something, so if your partners haven't, maybe lost their homes, they probably know other people who have, or maybe they have people staying with them. And I feel like that it's just going to be one of those where everyone out there knows somebody who's affected by it in some way.
Yeah. And I know we can talk more about this at the end. I don't want to take up too much time up front, but I will say real quick, if you're looking to give and help and you have the means to do it, I work with two really great organizations out there. Baby to Baby is one. They're doing a lot of work right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Los Angeles Regional Food Bank.
Awesome.
Two great organizations that can use support right now. Right. So.
And I know a lot of, there are pet organizations too out there helping displaced animals. And I believe the Pasadena Humane, or not Pasadena, maybe it is the Pasadena Humane Society. And I know that there's a rescue out there called Wags and Walks that are taking in a lot of shelter dogs right now to clear space for those animals who have been displaced from the fires and that sort of thing, which I can't imagine not being able to find my animals.
I've watched a video of someone
reuniting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I was like in tears.
Me too.
Yeah.
And actually, on that note, another one of the organizations that we work with is PAWS, PAWS. They're based out of Washington, but they're going down and they're helping find homes for animals that have been displaced.
I used to volunteer with PAWS sometimes whenever I lived in Seattle.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been working with them for years. They're great.
Yeah.
That's
I did
fun.
some work with them while I was there. So anyway,
cool.
Well, shall we change subjects and get to your story tonight?
Let's do it. Let me cough first. Let me have a little sip of this wine. What are you drinking? I'm having wine. How about you?
I'm having I didn't have anything in my house, so I'm having a beer tonight, a blonde ale for my blondness.
I thought you were going to say water or something, and then we have to
Oh God,
pause. And you got
God,
water.
no. You know me better than that, Blake. It's been almost 10 years. You know me better.
Yeah, I wouldn't even use water in our house except to flush the toilet. So,
Well, and shower, of course.
yeah. Oh, that too.
Yes.
I shower all the time. Just kidding. I mean, I do. Okay. So, this is a fun little story for me that I put together. It's, how do I say? I sort of did it for the shock, but I actually couldn't find some of the details that I was hoping to find because they've been all but erased from the internet.
Oh, wow. This must be a doozy. Can you remind me of what your hints were? Oh, you
Yeah,
already did. So it is men, sex, and journalism.
yeah.
Journalist. Okay.
Uh-huh. So for many gay men, my age or older, being publicly out was only considered acceptable if you fit into society's narrow stereotypes of what a gay person should be, like a hairdresser or an artist or like as a comedic punchline.
Mhm.
Like for decades, that was it, right? Like you were a Paul Lind or you were a fashion designer. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it wasn't really until Will and Grace premiered in 1998 that the idea of gay people living normal public lives, just like straight people, started to gain broader acceptance. Even then, there was a significant period of societal catching up. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Do you remember that movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks where they
Hmm.
not only found out that he was gay, but that he had AIDS, and then like he got fired from he was an attorney and at a
Yeah,
law firm, law firm, and got fired from his job and going through all of that. That was the saddest movie. And that was I think that was in the 90s.
it was. It was actually before Will and Grace, and I just used Will and Grace as like, hey, Tilda, no, sweetie, no. Sorry, she's so bad. She's trying to pull her bed outside. Yeah, I'm sure there's like a number of things that happened around that time. For me, it was Will and Grace. And I know it was just sort of like a household show that a lot of people watched.
Mhm.
And I remember my mom's friend, who also was also conservative, talking to my mom about how funny it was and how much she loved that show. And that was sort of a moment for me, like, oh, like maybe things are going to be okay,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, Before that time, being openly gay was especially challenging if you held a position of prominence or recognition in your community or profession. The risks were too high and acceptance was far from guaranteed. And where would that be most controversial, Amanda?
The South or maybe Washington, D.C.
That's right. Pol- Politics.
Both.
So, yeah, pretty much. So, today I'll be sharing the story of activist Michael Rogers and the politicians whose secrets he exposed.
Oh, never
And
heard of him.
you may not have heard of him, but I'll be curious to see if you know any of these stories. I recognize like one of them, but again, I think I was like early, like I had just gone to college. So this was like not really, I was like in school and drinking.
Mhm.
That was it. So
Right.
in 2003, Massachusetts made history as the first state to legalize gay marriage. While many viewed this milestone as a step toward the fight for equality, Karl Rove saw it as a political opportunity. In early 2004, then President George W. Bush endorsed an amendment to ban same sex marriage, a strategic move orchestrated by Karl Rove to energize conservative Christian voters. Marriage equality became a wedge issue in the 2004 election, designed to drive turnout and solidify political power. By July of that year, as 11 anti gay marriage campaigns vied for conservative attention at the polls, gay rights activist Michael Rogers launched BlogActive, all one word, BlogActive.
BlogActive.
The website aimed to expose the hypocrisy of anti gay politicians who, behind closed doors, were engaging in secret same-sex relationships.
Oh, saucy.
Exactly. This is why I was excited about this one. For years, activist Michael Rogers had been aware of prominent gay politicians who remained in the closet while supporting homophobic policies, seemingly to advance their political careers. Rogers aimed to expose these politicians and their high-profile staffers, drawing on sources both inside and outside Washington. The blog quickly gained national attention, with major media outlets like the Washington Post covering the story within days of its launch, and Roger defending his actions on platforms like the Bill O'Reilly Show. Remember Bill O'Reilly?
Of course I do. I
All right.
hated him. I still hate him. Oh, he
was
is.
the worst.
Oh, yeah. And he was on even like, wasn't he on A Current Affair before he had his own show too? He's just, oh, he's such a horrible person.
Yeah, it was like he and Rush Limbaugh and
Oh, God.
flashbacks.
Oh,
So Rogers argued that his efforts weren't about exposing private lives, but holding public figures accountable for hypocrisy. He maintained that those who actively worked against LGBTQ plus rights while living double lives deserved to be scrutinized. Over the next decade, Rogers reported on dozens of closeted politicians and staffers, sparking a broader discussion about the intersection of personal identity and public policy. It's sort of like if I started a podcast on the joys of football, when in fact I actively dislike football.
right, but way worse.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
He believes that his work has contributed to a more honest and open dialogue about anti-gay politicians and their actions. So first up, let's talk about Jonathan Tolman. Jonathan Tolman, a senior Republican staffer on the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, chaired by conservative Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, became a key target in Michael Rogers' outing campaign. Years earlier, Tolman had participated in a risque photo spread for the gay-oriented publication Metro Weekly, an act that resurfaced when Rogers publicized it on his blog. Tolman expressed regret, telling the Washington Blade, quote, "My appearance in the magazine was a mistake. I know now." He criticized Rogers' outing campaign as, again, quote, "kind of fascist." Senator Inhofe's office quickly responded to Rogers with a controversial statement, asserting that he did not hire openly gay staffers to avoid, quote, "conflicts of agenda." When asked for further clarification, Inhofe's press officer reiterated, "The statement stands. You have the senator's position on that." Rogers defended his decision, arguing that Tolman had effectively outed himself by appearing in the magazine. He's not wrong about that. He already published
It's
it.
true. Like, he's been published, you know.
Yeah. He also emphasized that his campaign was not intended to harm individuals' employment, noting that he deliberately avoided exposing a gay member of Inhofe's personal staff to prevent their dismissal. Inhofe's office had previously stated a policy of not hiring openly gay staffers in his personal office to avoid, again, conflicts of agenda.
And this was legal back then?
I don't know.
To discriminate on that, or?
That's a great question. I don't know when all of that went into effect.
Yeah, I don't either.
Or if it's like you're somehow exempt if you're
if you're a politician.
If you wrote the laws, you don't have to actually uphold them yourself.
Right.
It's sort of like when a lawmaker gets caught speeding like 80 miles an hour in a 65, and then they get a ticket, and they're like, "Why?"
Or is a convicted felon but is elected for president of the United States.
Can you give us an example?
It's happening on Monday.
Oh God. So from I didn't read my sources. I'll give them at the end, but one of my sources was Politico, and in this article written by Rogers, he says, "Before I published the story, the staffer whom I had talked to 3 days earlier called and urged me not to run it. I have a right to privacy. It's no one's business that I'm gay." That was a quote from the staffer. Rogers said, "I found it hard to take the man's protestation seriously when he had appeared as a cover model for a gay Washington, D.C. magazine." The reaction to these early posts was mixed, with some people backing me and others yammering that I was invading politicians' right to privacy. To the latter group, I pointed out that these very politicians were making my private life and the lives of a million other LGBT Americans a very public political issue.
True.
So, also in 2004, Ken Mellman, President George W. Bush's campaign manager, was announced as Bush's pick to lead the Republican National Committee. Mellman, a 38-year-old protege of Karl Rove, played a pivotal role in Bush's reelection, which saw the president secure a 51% majority and the Republican Party expanded its control in Congress and across state legislatures. Mellman emphasized that the importance of creating a sustainable and long-lasting Republican majority while broadening the party's base, citing improved support among key demographics such as Hispanics, Catholics, and women during the election. Rogers wrote on his blog about the 2004 Bush campaign, quote, "The most homophobic national campaign in history. That campaign was run by one of the nation's worst closeted individuals, Ken Mellman." Rogers had been pointing the finger at Mellman for years, and in 2010, the RNC chair finally came out publicly. He was quoted as saying, "It's taken me 43 years to get comfortable with this part of my life. The process has been something that hasn't made me happier. Oh no, I'm sorry. The process has been something that's made me a happier and better person. It's something I wish I had done years ago." After the 2015 Supreme Court decision on gay marriage, Mellman said, quote, "Today's decision is historic and consistent with an accelerating trend over the past decade. As more Americans consider the question, more support marriage equality across every ideological, religious, racial, ethnic, and age demographic." So sort of a success story.
Mhm.
He was outed from BlogActive, but then later embraced it. And then in August 2004, President of Virginia Beach's Atlantic Shores Baptist Church and U.S. Representative Edward L. Schrock, a Republican from Virginia's conservative 2nd Congressional District, announced his sudden retirement. Rogers released recordings of Schrock seeking sex with a man from a hookup phone service.
Oh.
Yeah, spicy.
Hookup phone service.
I know, they were different times.
Yeah, that was back in the day
Pre-Grindr.
Grindr.
Yeah, exactly. That was when phone service meant like pick up your phone and like dial, like a cord phone and dial.
A
You know what
cord
I
phone
mean?
and dial, and it's like $3 a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Where was I? The blog post accused Schrock of hypocrisy as he was a member of a party often associated with anti-gay policies. Schrock, a 63-year-old retired Navy officer and Vietnam vet, did not directly address the allegations in his retirement announcement, stating only that they raised questions about his ability to serve his constituents. He declined to comment further, and local Republican leaders expressed shock at the announcement. So that one always sort of that. So this is one of the things, like when I was trying to find details on the outings themselves, like what Michael Rogers had actually written. BlogActive is defunct. Like you can't even access that website anymore. So I couldn't find details anymore. And I think part of that was because you have people like Ken Mellman, who at the time were problematic, but later changed their ways and started working for LGBTQ plus rights. I don't know if the decision was like, okay, these sort of controversial things need to come down now because they've served their purpose.
Right. Right.
But I just wanted to know their dirty details.
I want to know everything.
Yeah. I could have just made them up. It was a fisting in public, you know? So a year later, in 2005, Rogers connected with Paul Koering, a Minnesota state senator who was privately gay but publicly opposed gay marriage. Over a series of conversations, Koering shared his struggles with his conservative upbringing in a religious Catholic family and the challenges of being a closeted politician. Rogers could sense Koering's internal conflict and assured him that his sexuality would remain private, regardless of how he voted on an upcoming constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. So at this point, Rogers is like identified that this person is really in conflict with himself and like gave him some grace, basically. So he did not out him.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly afterward, Koering defied his caucus, including prominent conservative Michelle Bachmann, by voting against the amendment. He then stepped into the Minneapolis Capitol Rotunda and publicly came out as gay in an interview with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune.
Wow.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Despite the political risks, Koering's honesty resonated with voters. He was reelected to the Minnesota State Senate the following year and later served on the County Board of Supervisors, marking his journey as both a personal and political success. So I love that. I mean, I'm in it for the dirty details, but this is my favorite part of the story.
Yeah.
And it's just it's one of those things where what am I looking for? It's like, I mean, honesty is the best policy, right? Like he came out, he was honest about it, public about it, and people embraced it.
Right.
So, and then
there's nothing worse than somebody not living their truth. But it's one thing to not live your truth, but it's another thing to like hide it and then like vote for things that are against the way that you really feel. you know, I mean, just like I don't know. I you must be like hella conflicted to do that.
Yeah, it's like methinks he doth protest too much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like he who smelt it dealt it.
Yeah.
Does that apply? I think so. So Michael Rogers was born on November 12th, 1963 in Suffern, New York. He's an American fundraiser and gay rights activist, and he attended the University of Buffalo, majoring in political science. Early in his career, Rogers became the first full-time fundraiser for the Hedrick Martin Institute and Harvey Milk High School, organizations dedicated to supporting LGBTQ plus youth. In 2004, as I've stated, he founded BlogActive, and his activism in that area was highlighted in the 2009 documentary film Outrage, which I have not watched, but check it out. I'm sure it's great.
I've never heard of it, but it sounds like it's probably good.
Mm-hmm. Beyond BlogActive, Rogers has held significant roles in media and advocacy. He serves as vice chairman of Raw Story Media, Inc., co-owner of Alternet Media, and is the founder and director of Netroots Connect, an organization that fosters collaboration among progressive online activists. Throughout his career, Rogers has been recognized for his contributions to the LGBTQ plus activism. He was named to Out Magazine's Out 100 list in both 2008 and 2022, acknowledging his impact and influence within the LGBTQ plus community. While Michael Rogers' methods may have been controversial, BlogActive significantly impacted both gay culture and the political landscape by exposing closeted politicians who supported anti-LGBTQ plus policies. His work highlighted the hypocrisy of public figures whose personal lives contradicted their political stances, sparking national debates about accountability and privacy. Rogers' efforts not only forced conversations about the intersection of personal identity and public policy, but also emboldened discussions about representation and authenticity within politics. And my sources for this story, and I have one little fun thing I'm going to throw in at the end of this too, but my sources for this were the article from Politico that I mentioned, written by Mike Rogers, a 2004 article from NBC News, a 2010 article from NPR.org, a 2010 article from The Guardian, 2015 article from CNN, and a 2004 article from Salon.com. And just the last thing, and this is honestly the reason why, what sparked my sort of idea behind this episode was, do you remember Idaho Senator Larry Craig?
Mm-mm. I
Does
don't
that ring
believe
a bell?
so.
Okay. So this is the one that I remember. And I don't know if Michael Rogers had anything to do with this. I couldn't find anything in my research, but again, that website's defunct. So on June 11th, 2007, Larry Craig was arrested for indecent behavior in a men's restroom at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport. So
Oh,
he was like in a stall and was tapping his foot under the stall to the man in the stall next to him, which is like a signal.
right.
Like a public cruising thing. It's like you're either looking for like a hand job under the stall or like a blow job if you can like maneuver that. But that's essentially what that is. Like you're looking
Oh,
for public sex from another man
in an airport?
in an airport.
That's
So
brazen.
the man that he did that to was an undercover cop.
Oh, great timing.
Whoops.
Uh-oh.
So he claimed that,
Just kidding. I was just kidding. I was just tapping my foot to, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, he claimed that he had a really wide stance. So his foot just happened to be like shifted that way. And that he was leaning over to get something, like he dropped a tissue or something. That was the story he gave. Uh,
Mhm.
so, I mean, crazy shit happens. Like people end up in weird situations sometimes that look worse than they are. But I
Right.
don't know about that.
I highly doubt that is the case.
I do too. So he was another one who, again, conservative. He was fined and he denied it. And he was married. I believe he still is. He did. He did later that year state that he would resign, but then later reversed his decision and decided to finish the remainder of his term, even though he didn't run for re-election. But it was just a messy thing, and I remember that one being in the news quite a bit. For me, it was that one and oh, what's his name? Anthony Weiner,
Oh, yeah, that
which
guy.
was not like a gay sex scandal, but it was
No,
still a
but
sex
that
scandal.
was twisted as fuck. Yeah, it was an underage girl, right? And I believe it was in Florida, that she was from Florida or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, he always seemed so skeevy to me. Do you remember that he and his wife lived in, remember those condos that were by
Hmm.
WeWork? Um, I actually saw him one day outside of there going to inside of that condo building.
I remember you telling me that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He's a little weasel.
he is
Yeah.
weaselly.
Well, that was interesting.
Didn't they release D-Pics?
I think he did. I
His,
well, I
his
think there
son.
were I think it was kind of under I don't think I don't think that was actual full on nudity. I think it was like the silhouette of it underneath his underwear or something like that.
I'm looking this up.
I just think it's funny that his last name's Wiener too.
So appropriate.
I know.
Anthony Weiner. There's lots of photos of him. Anyway, I can do this later. I just wanted to find a D-Pic.
So what are your thoughts on this guy like outing people like that?
I
Like, do
mean,
you agree with it or do you think it's kind of a shitty thing to do? I mean, like for me, in some ways, it's kind of like if you're a politician, your life's out there, and if you're gonna like preach all of this stuff, if somebody finds out something about you, then I almost feel like you've put yourself in the position to be fair game.
I agree with that. I really do. I think that if you're representing the public and you've presented yourself as one thing, you should be that one thing. So I have sort of mixed feelings on it. I guess ultimately, I think the outcome of what he did was meaningful and impactful in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the instances where, like with Paul Koering, where he did talk to these people, and he backed off from that one because he felt like there was like a true internal conflict, and this person wants to do the right thing and they just hadn't gotten there. So I don't know, I kind of feel okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he just was trying to read the people he was talking to, and if they felt skeevy, then he ran it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Have you been watching? I highly
porn?
doubt that you have. No, the Senate confirmation like hearings for like Trump's new cabinet and stuff like that.
No.
There was this one guy, and I think he's up for like Secretary of State or something like that. But he used to be an anchor at Fox News, of course, and I mean, just his personal life. He's been married 3 times. He was, like, cheating on his 2nd wife, or had a like, got his 3rd, who is now his 3rd wife, pregnant while he was with his 2nd wife. Have there are instances of him, allegedly, partying with underage, not underage, but really young staffers, being carried up to his hotel room, in, drunkenly, which, I mean, I have too, but guess what? I'm not trying to be Secretary of fucking State.
Right.
It's just like, it's so egregious, like how they try to put on this, like, I'm this conservative, and I have conservative values and all that kind of stuff. And when you really pull the lid off, on their real lives, it's just total fucking bullshit. And that's what pisses me off.
Yeah, me too. And there is a line for me, because I think there are instances where I don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't give a fuck if you have an affair. Like, I don't really fucking care. But don't pretend to be, all conservative and shit.
right. Yeah. That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
talk about family values, or those sorts of things when you can't fucking walk the walk.
Yeah.
Family values my ass.
Or like you're pro-life and you're just like out fucking a bunch of young women, and if one of them got pregnant, guaranteed you would make sure that they got an abortion.
150%.
It's happened before.
Yes.
It's probably happening now.
Mhm.
So yeah, I fucking hate that.
Yeah. Which again is why I hate politics.
Yeah. That's why we hate this series. This
I'm actually enjoying the series because I feel like it's making me look into things a little bit more. Um, and I think this one will do good because it's not like super crazy, like serious into politics. It's kind of like, the outing of people who are, just full of shit,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice.
Yeah. I guess it sort of it meant something to me
Hmm.
to do it, obviously. Because like I said, in 2003, I moved away to college. And in 2008, I moved to Los Angeles, and like I marched in like the whole Prop 8 thing that was happening. Um, and then Obama was elected, and then in 2015, the marriage equality thing happened when I was in New York, and so like I was there for all of that. Like I was a young man for all of that, and so all of this happening in the background at the same time was just sort of, and I didn't know about a lot of this.
Right,
That
right.
sort of interested me.
You kind of came into your own like at a very interesting time
Hmm.
in in that whole space because like you're really lucky that you're not a little bit older, because if you were 10 or 15 years older than you are now, there would have been a time, where you may have felt like you had to be in the closet
Yes,
longer than you were.
absolutely. And if you look back 10 to 15 years before this, what was topical for gay culture at that time was AIDS.
Yeah.
So it was like
It's like, great, I'm gonna die.
it was like a double negative for society. Like, okay,
Mhm.
they're disgusting because they're gay, and also they all are getting sick, and let's stay away from them and not help them.
Right.
So, and then before that, it was Stonewall.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's a big gap in time where there was like nothing really positive happening for the community, like little moments here and there, but largely it was a negative thing. So, I was fortunate in my
The
time.
aughts were good to you guys.
Yeah. And it was nice to be able to live in places where I could support the things just coincidentally, support the
Mhm.
things that were really meaningful at the time for LGBTQ plus communities.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was pretty fascinating. So
I think the people, I think, I mean, there's obviously people who still have a long way to go, but I feel like there are people like, even like my parents and stuff, like, like I remember when I moved to Seattle and I wanted to live in Capitol Hill, which is in Seattle. That's like the West Village or Hell's Kitchen. It's pretty much where the gay community lives,
mhm.
and that sort of thing. And I remember Susan asking me, like, when I moved there, she was like, do aren't you afraid that people are going to think that you're gay if you live in that neighborhood? And I'm like, I don't give a flying fuck what people think I am. And I was like, honestly, I was like, you should want me to live in that neighborhood because it's probably the least likely of me getting raped because nobody wants to do anything to me. But like, but that was like in 2001 that I moved there, 2001, 2002, and that was her response to that. Whereas today, I don't think that she would, 20 years later, I don't think that she would ever say anything like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing with my family.
Yeah.
And there's so many things there too. Like, well, just real quick, living in New York, nobody's going to think about you being gay or straight because nobody's thinking about you.
Nobody cares about anything that
Nobody
you're
cares.
doing.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like about New York, and I'm not going to make this a huge tangent, but when you hear people complain about, oh, New Yorkers are rude, that's totally incorrect. New Yorkers just don't have time to say hi to everyone they pass on the street because there's too many fucking people.
Yeah.
But if I will tell you, if you're in New York and you're in crisis, someone is going to stop and help you
Yes.
because people do
Absolutely.
care. And people who, as long as they're not walking around their fucking cell phones, because they do that too, but as long as someone is paying attention, people will help you. People care. It's just,
Mhm.
we're just too busy. And that's what I love about New York.
Yeah, I was helped plenty on nights that I've gotten myself into trouble in New York by strangers and friends in kind. But
Hmm.
no, I completely agree. And it's just too like that it's so you have to work so hard to live there. You don't just say like, "I'm gonna move," and unless you have a trust fund, then
Right.
you're fine. But you don't just move to New York City. Like, when you move to New York City, work becomes so important, because that's how you're paying your fucking rent. That's your livelihood. You might have
It's
2 or 3
expensive.
jobs. It's fucking expensive. And so, not only can you not say hi to everybody, but you've got like 500,000 things going through your head about, how am I gonna pay rent this month? Like,
Yeah.
like, you just don't have time for anyone's bullshit or to care about
And
stupid shit like, is someone gay or not?
right. And on top of that, and this is totally a tangent now, but on top of that, yes, no matter where you live, your income, you rely on that to pay your rent or your mortgage or your bills, whatever. But the thing about New York, and there are other markets that are like this too, other large markets that are like this, but New York is at the top of the list. When you move to New York and you get a job there are thousands of other people moving to New York, applying and
And
competing for that same job. So
want
if
that
you
job.
don't do that job really well, you are SOL. You are moving back to fucking Idaho or Oklahoma or Arkansas. Like,
Yeah.
you really have to work really hard. And I've worked in a lot of places. Yeah, it's nuts. But the other thing I wanted to say before the tangent was, because you had mentioned how your mom reacted back then and how she wouldn't do that now. I also think this is an important message for right now, because I mean, it seems like maybe we've shifted away from cancel culture, or are shifting away from it. It seems to be less of a thing now than it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But understanding and forgiveness are so important, because how someone is right at this moment doesn't mean they're going to be that way in 5 years or 20 years. And how you interact with them will potentially shape them into what that will be in 5 or 20 years. So if you cancel someone or just immediately push them away, they're always going to be conflict for them. They're never going to get to that point of understanding or compassion or whatever it is that you feel like they're lacking. It's so important. And this is also one of the reasons why I hate politics just more and more, is that that gap just gets so much wider between parties, and people just refuse to listen to one another. And it's always about, what can we do right now to fix this, or to get rid of them, or make sure that's not happening, without a whole lot of thought about what that means for 10 years or 20 years from now. And so I guess that's just my point, is be nice, listen to each other, have conversations. Yes, and, don't say no. Yes, and listen, and just be good.
Or at least a what if.
At least a what if. Like, we owe that to one another. Some
Yeah.
people, and some people won't listen, and that's fine for them. But you never know, something that you say right now to someone who's not listening, you might plant a seed. So anyway, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get off my soapbox right here and drink this wine.
Do you have any current events other than the LA wildfires that we were talking about?
Oh, I've been meaning to bring this up for weeks now, because I messaged you about it. Weeks, Amanda, just weeks. I messaged you about it, and I meant to give this update, and I don't think I did. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the Allison Botha story that I did for our limited series Abduction last summer,
Yes.
I was so curious, because as I was doing that story, I was checking in to see like what she was doing currently, and she was like doing a lot of public speaking and traveling and like inspirational speeches, things like that. And then there just wasn't a lot of information over a period of time. And we just found out recently that she had, and now I don't have the article in front of me, but I believe she had a stroke.
Either that or an aneurysm or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
it might have been an aneurysm. But my God, like, this woman just won't die.
No, she's
And
a
thank God.
warrior. Yeah.
Yeah, fucking incredible.
Yeah.
She survived it and went into her mother's care. I think her mother was like caring for her, but
Yeah.
she's still doing it. Yeah.
Sending good thoughts her way. And I wouldn't be surprised if like her medical issues, these like happening now, probably stem somehow by from the trauma that she endured during that
Yeah.
attack. I
That
mean,
was my thought too, because
mhm.
the physical trauma alone, I've never heard any story like that one. I've never heard of anyone even close to surviving anything like that.
I thought that I was going to have a survival story because I was listening to Snapped, an episode of Snapped, and it was about a woman in Oregon who called 911 after she had been stabbed like 60 times or something like that, but she didn't make it.
Oh,
she was able to call and, get help to her, but ended up not making it. So I was like, damn, that would have been another good story. But she ended up passing away. But yeah, the Alison Botha thing is, I still, I implore you, if you have not listened to the Alison Botha story, gotta listen to it, or at least look her up. She's
It's the only good thing I've ever done.
fucking amazing story.
Yeah.
An amazing woman at that. I don't have really any current events. I know that Luigi Mangione is having his next court hearing, I believe, next Friday, which is the 24th. So stay tuned, folks. We'll see if we get a peek of him in the courtroom.
And then I think maybe you sent me this meme, or maybe Josh did. It was probably you, about or probably you sent it to Josh, and then I think he sent it to me. It was a meme about Luigi Mangione, and it was like about how insurance companies in California over the past year, something about
Yes.
fire. You know this.
They've canceled, just recently, within the past year, have canceled so many people's fire policies. And so now that this is all happening out in LA, people are finding out that their insurance isn't going to cover their losses. And you tell me what's going to happen,
Yeah, the meme was hilarious. It was like the Batman signal, but it was Luigi.
Oh, yes, Luigi.
And it was like, we need you, Luigi.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's responsible for making those cancellation decisions, but you're watching your back.
I would be watching my back for sure.
Scary.
The inauguration is on Monday, on MLK Day, which is very weird.
I know.
Given who is being sworn into office, because he embodies everything that Martin Luther King Jr. did not.
I have a nightmare.
Yeah. And I'm really nervous about what the next 4 years are going to bring. I am very, very nervous, for sure. I normally wouldn't talk politics this much on this, but since this is our, what we're covering right now, that's basically my concern, is that I feel like people are going to try to take away rights, and I don't like that at all.
That's my concern too. And last time he was elected, and I think I said this, ultimately we all have to pick a side, left or right. You don't have to, but most people are going to pick a side, left or right. There's a healthy amount of people now that I feel like consider themselves middle of the road.
And that's me. Yeah.
Ultimately, I chose to vote a certain way. That's what we do. We have two choices, really, at this point. But I will say that when he was first elected, I was still hopeful, because it's like if you go on a blind date and you get there and your first impression is like, oh, I don't like this person. And then maybe you have a pity date, like a second pity date, like, all right, let me give it a second shot. And you're like, oh, I kind of like this person. Like, maybe there actually is something here. That was my hope from his first presidency. And I did go into it with that mindset. Like, I don't care how much I didn't like you during the campaign. You are my president now for the next at least 4 years. And I hope that it's going to be a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I did not feel that way after it. So I'm a little bit less hopeful right now.
Well, and sort of in the same vein with that, I personally thought that perhaps after his assassination attempt on his life, this past summer, where he literally was centimeters away from getting his head blown off, literally, that perhaps it would center him a little more and bring in some, like that maybe it would be like a wake up call to, be a little bit better, than what he does. And I haven't seen that, and I think that's what concerns me, because if I had a brush with death, I feel like in some ways it would change me, and
Yeah.
that maybe I would, I don't know. I thought it would change him a little bit, or maybe soften him up a little or something, but and his relationships with like Elon Musk and stuff like that really concern me. Because he's such a powerful businessman and stuff, and I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's nothing I can do, so I may as well just accept it, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it is.
And I know our goal here is not to alienate people, and this is just our opinions based on our own personal experiences and where we are in our lives and who we are in our lives. So we're not looking for conflict here.
I just want to be able to have an abortion.
Exactly. Me too.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, for God's sakes, like, let women, leave women alone. Just like we've said this before, let us be.
Yeah.
Leave the gays alone. Like, leave everyone alone.
Live in my house with my dog and have my glasses of wine. That's right,
I mean,
plural.
They've taken abortion and porn away from me in Florida. I don't know what else they can do here. My life is out of control.
And without porn and abortions, life is so boring.
I know.
More abortions.
Oh, God. Well, should I give you my 3 hints for my next story, which will be the final in our series before we move on to
Final countdown.
Dun, 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 dun. Well, my 3
tips.
hints are governor, land or land purchase, Kenneth Starr. Do you know who Kenneth Starr is? He played a role in the Monica Lewinsky scandal.
I remember the name. I couldn't immediately tell you who, but I definitely know the name.
Yeah. He's someone you probably wouldn't like, is my guess. Yeah.
I'm not going to Google this. I feel like if I Googled these 3 things, I probably could figure it out pretty quickly.
You probably could.
I'm not going to do it.
Don't do it. Don't do
Google
it.
porn instead, because I can still access that here in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's not taking away your fundamental rights. Well, they are with abortion, but not with porn. Porn's still okay out there.
So spilling my seed.
Oh my God.
Dirty videos.
Watching dirty videos. Well, I guess that we can go ahead and wrap this one up. Shall I tell everyone where they can continue to watch, listen, etc.?
No.
Yeah. So we have our YouTube channel at The Forbidden Pod. We are also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at The Forbidden Pod. On social, you can check us out at The Forbidden Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and for now, TikTok, maybe not after Sunday. Like they're supposed to be, TikTok is going to be banned, I believe, as of Sunday. So TikTok might be going away, folks. Oh, remind me, I need you to do something for me for the website, but it's www.theforbiddenpod.com is our website. Check it out. Got cool photos and that sort of thing there. And then email us your story ideas, nude pics, dick pics, all that good stuff at hello@theforbiddenpod.com.
That's
and
right.
I think I covered it all.
Email my heart is a Britney song, a Britney Spears song that just popped in my head when you said that. Anyway, well, thank you for listening to my story, Amanda, and listeners.
Thank you for bringing everything up in that story. I honestly had no idea about any of that happening, except for the Karl Rove thing. That I do remember him.
Yeah, the worst.
Yeah, awful. And listeners, as always, we thank you
For being a friend.